Theological Pipe.
I've been expecting you.
There is a God, and
I speak German.
I'm Rocky.
Hey, welcome to another episode, finally, after about a month and a half break, another episode of Theological Pipe. Glad you're here. I'm going to play a clip. If you're watching, you'll see it on YouTube. If you're not watching, you'll hear it. It's a clip from Good Will Hunting. I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to comment and kind of talk about what I want to talk about today. So here's the clip.
Hey, Will. I don't know a lot. You see this? All this shit. This is not your fault. Look at me, son. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know. No, you don't. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. All right? It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Don't fuck with me. It's not your fault. Don't fuck with me, all right? Don't fuck with me, Sean. Not you. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Oh my God. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Fuck them, okay?
Okay, so Good Will Hunting, great movie. Robin Williams, Matt Damon in that scene. Robin Williams plays a psychiatrist. He is counseling Matt Damon's character. Not going to go into all the details of the movie. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a great movie. Great scene right there. And the point of that scene to me that I kind of want to talk about today, the title of this is, Why Are We Yelling? And I'm going to do my best not to raise my voice, but when I do, it will be to make a point. In that scene, you see Robin Williams, it's towards the end, and he has to file a report on Matt Damon about his diagnosis, what he thinks about Matt Damon, his character, Good Will Hunting. And, you know, he's been abused. Matt Damon's character had been abused, and he gets in fights, and he gets in trouble. He's a genius. He's very smart, but he's troubled, and he's had a really tough upbringing. And as he's has the report, Matt Damon says, what does that say? That Will's got an attachment disorder, that kind of stuff. And Robin Williams' character is like, yes. And then he looks at him and he goes, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. And Matt Damon does what he does. He puts up those shields. He goes, yeah, I know. And Robin Williams' character just keeps repeating, it's not your fault. Son, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Right? What do you think? And he's trying to let Matt Damon know that his life, Will Hunting, the character Matt Damon played, he's wanting to let him know that the stuff that he went through, the stuff that he's, his trouble, his attitudes, his willingness to push people away right when they start to get close, it's not his fault. He was raised and was given a bad hand, and he's letting him know that, hey, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And he keeps repeating it. And finally, it starts to sink into Will Hunting. It starts to sink into his character, and they embrace, and it's a really emotional scene, and it's great. And I wonder what would have happened had Robin Williams' character at that moment said, hey, Will, I want to tell you something. It's not your fault. And, Will Hunting goes, yeah, I know. And again, Robin Williams' character, he's a psychiatrist. He knows that Will doesn't really know. He's not really buying it. So what do you think would have happened instead of Robin Williams' character just repeating softly, it's not your fault. Look at me, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. What do you think would have happened after the first time Matt Damon, or even the second time Will Hunting said, yeah, I know, the psychiatrist goes, "No, you fool, you're not listening to me. It's not your fault. I'm telling you, it's not your fault. I can't believe, are you stupid? Are you dumb? It's not your fault. You didn't do it." Like, what would have happened? What would have been the reaction if the psychiatrist would have just exploded and started yelling? Right? There's times, and I'm not trying to discount the times to get passionate and to raise your voice, but it seems like with TikTok, with Twitter, with YouTube, with everything, everybody is yelling. And I see these clips from people, from pastors and people in church, and they're yelling. You have people at church in the audience, so to speak, and they are willingly there, and we're yelling at them, right? And you're trying to reach the lost. And I think the last thing you want to do to reach people who are hurting, who've been abused, who feel neglected, who feel lonely, who feel sad, who feel anxious, who are coming out of 2 years of just division and pandemic and stuff, what are we doing? We're yelling at them. And we're making them just, you're pushing people away. There's a time, and I'm not discounting fire and brimstone preaching, but man, we need to be careful as believers, as Christians, as people who are trying to comfort people. Yelling at them's not the way. And the majority of those people that are posting those clips on TikTok, on YouTube, and I know I'm hypocritical for I'm posting this to try to counter the point, and I think they're doing it though to make a name for themselves. It's about them. They're trying to make themselves, look, I'm yelling and screaming about Jesus, and he's the way, and he's the truth, and he is. But stop yelling. Like, don't yell. People don't need to be yelled at. They need to be listened to. They need to be confronted with the truth, but in a loving, gracious manner, right? There's very few instances in the Bible where Jesus was preaching and teaching, and he was yelling at people. Now, yeah, people are going to bring up, well, he knocked over the tables, but that was a different circumstance. When he was teaching, when he was preaching, he would sit down and he would teach them. He would talk to people. And he would be loving and gracious and kind and share about the kingdom of God. And I think that that's just something we need to stop yelling. Stop. It almost, and again, maybe it's just personal. Maybe it's just my personal personality and my preferences that I don't want to be yelled at. But I just think we're doing a disservice when people who aren't Christians, people who aren't believers, people who are having a struggle with the faith, they turn on TikTok, they turn on YouTube, they turn on podcasts, and people are yelling at them and telling them that they're idiots and wrong and wake up and the country's going to this and this and God. Fine, and all the stuff that they're saying may even be true. But man, the approach we need to do is, you need to, again, there's a great scene in Seinfeld, and I'm going to mess up the scene a little bit, but Elaine was talking about how you try to lure a squirrel to you almost like you're luring a boyfriend or a girlfriend to you. She said, you don't make big movements. You don't just go crazy. You're like, come here. And man, Jesus called us to be salt and light, right? Too much salt is disgusting on food. Too much light will blind you. We need to be the elixir, the balm, we need to be the fix that the world needs. And as Christians, that's what we need to do. And I think that 99.9% of the times, yelling at people is not the answer, right? I think we need to approach it almost like we're the psychiatrist in Good Will Hunting, and we're approaching Will Hunting, and we want to let him know that it's okay. We want to let him know that it's going to be okay. We want to let him know that there's hope, and there's peace, and there's forgiveness, and there's strength, and there's redemption. All of that's available, and you don't do that by yelling at people. You do it by loving them and by telling them about Jesus, and again, in a calm, passionate, loving way without yelling at people. I just think that we need to stop yelling. And again, you may watch this and totally disagree with me, and that's fine, but I'm just coming from a standpoint of, I think when we yell at people and we put those things on TikTok and social media and podcasts, it's almost like we're trying to say, hey, look at me, I'm yelling. When at the end of the day, when the sermon is over, when the message is over, if you are more impressed with the preacher who was yelling at you, if you're more impressed with the worship leader who was screaming songs or rocking out, and there's nothing wrong with rocking out, but we need to shine the light on Jesus, and we need to point the finger and point people to him, not to us. And I think when you're yelling, you're trying to make much of yourself. When you're doing those things, you're trying to draw attention to yourself, and really we should draw attention to Jesus. And you do that by telling people calmly and nicely and stuff like that. Again, don't go to extremes and say, well, what about in this case? Of course, there's always exceptions. But in the end of the day, for me, be salt and light. Not too much salt, not too much light. There's no need to yell. Jesus is the name above all names. If you're a Christian, you're a believer. That's what the Bible says. He's the name above all names. Just his name, just the mention of his name is enough. You don't need to scream it at people. They know. Deep down in their soul, deep down in their heart, they know. And we need to be, again, like a Robin Williams character. Just let me tell you about Jesus. Let me tell you about Jesus. Yeah, I know. No, let me tell you about him because you need him. And I think that's the answer. So, hey, put that in your theological pipe and smoke it. Stop yelling. And we'll see you next time.
Well, bye.